Hello, my name is Grant Tober, and today I will be doing a presentation based on changing populations. This is for Data 625-980 in the summer session of 2025, along with Dr. Wrightson at UMGC. So the question I wanted to answer today are populations growing, and are they growing in a sustainable way? And part of the reason I was interested in this particular topic is a lot of times you'll hear people talking about are countries growing their population at a replacement level, and does this impact foreign policy and lots of modern day events, such as the time frame countries need to act based on their populations. So to dig into this, the first thing I want to talk about is the data set that I chose. And I chose the data set from worldbank.org, which uses UN data comprised of countries, years, population breakdowns, and other characteristics such as net migration, fertility rates, age dependencies, um, demographic breakdowns based on age, and other things. So this data set had a lot of the characteristics that I was looking for that would allow me to sort and dig a little bit deeper into the information that I was interested in. So the first thing that I added in this presentation is this pie chart, and it's a basic overall understanding of where our countries lie on their total populations today. And this is sorted in a descending order from India in the top right, followed by China and the United States, all the way around to Greenland, which is the smallest, with each country designated a different color and label. That's pretty easy to see. And you can see that the two that I want to be focusing on for most of this presentation is the United States and China. So the next visualization that I added is this line chart here. Now, you can see the years are broken down by decades, but the first thing I want to mention is that the formatting of the dataset was not great, so I had to pivot all of the years to make it usable, and which it was for the rest of this presentation. But in this line chart, the x-axis is years and the y is by population total. And you can see that overall, in the two that I want to focus on, China has been steadily growing up until recently, where it was surpassed by India. And this is also added onto by this 95% confidence interval band, which shows a wide range of outcomes, but along with this smooth automated forecasting curve, it's projecting a downward trend. Now, the United States, on the other hand, has a much steadier growth, and where their 95% confidence interval and projected forecast is much narrower, so you can expect a more steady level of increase in the population. The next thing that I wanted to add was this stacked bar chart. Now, this bar chart is just a breakdown into the percentages of where each population lies between the United States and China. So you can see that it's broken down into younger than 15, between 15 and 64, and older than 64 by China and the United States. And while they are similar, the United States has a larger older than 64 and younger than 15 population, whereas China is the opposite. But the next thing that I really wanted to get into was this chart here, this step chart here, which shows the changing populations based on the elderly dependent population. And what does this mean? This means the percent of the population that has aged out of the workforce and is now dependent on the rest of the population to live. Now, with this sustainability of growth, this is one of the things that brings a lot of attention to it, because as there's an older population that relies on the younger population, they're no longer able to contribute to the workforce. And you can see that in this step chart here, I added it because as people age out of the workforce, it's done at usually similar points of the year and by year when the data was collected instead of over a continuous pace. But the United States is growing, but you can see these bands here in China are much more pronounced than the increase in the United States in the last 5 years. And along with this projected forecast is much wider for the Chinese going up and down, whereas the US is much higher. Now, you would think this is really poor for the United States versus China, but this is where I get to my next graph. In this graph, this is the working population. So the x-axis is year, whereas the y is percent of people that are within working population. Now, the United States has been continuously growing, and even again with this 95% confidence interval, the projected increase is here, whereas the Chinese recently have been decreasing. Now, their band is high, again, in a wide range of outcomes, but they have projected negative growth. And this means that going back to the original question, is their growth sustainable? Well, with the aging population and decreasing working population, the answer is no. And here are my citations.